You don't lose your medical license because you're a bad doctor. You lose it because you're a great one who ran out of sleep. At 29, you're $250,000 in debt. You're legally banned from the operating room. You're counting boxes of animal ketamine in a warehouse at 3 a.m. By 31, you're keeping men alive long enough to be tortured. Not because anyone forced you, because you were too good to say no, and too broke to walk away. This is the story of how skill becomes a leash. You grow up in a household where medicine is the only exit. Not because your parents push it, because you're the kind of kid whose brain categorizes everything. Symptoms, patterns, causes. You read anatomy books the way other kids read comics. You don't choose medicine. Medicine chooses the shape your brain already was. You get into a top surgical residency program. Cardiac, the hardest rotation in the building. By year 3, you understand something nobody tells you in medical school. The system doesn't run on talent, it runs on endurance. 80-hour weeks aren't an anomaly, they're the baseline. Attending surgeons sleep 4 hours and perform 9-hour procedures on zero margin for error. You adapt. Everybody adapts. The adaptation has a name nobody uses out loud. Amphetamines. Not addiction, not recreation, just math. You need 12 hours of focus, and you have 4 hours of sleep. The pills solve the equation. Half the residents are doing the same thing. Nobody talks about it because nobody has to. Then someone talks about it. They find yours on a Tuesday, in your locker, enough to classify as intent. The hearing is the part that surprises you. You expect drama. You expect anger. You expect someone to acknowledge the 80-hour weeks, the open chests, the hearts you restarted with your bare hands. Instead, you get a boardroom, fluorescent lights, legal pads, people who speak in careful, neutral language, the tone you use when the decision was already made before the meeting started. To them, you're not a surgeon under pressure. You're a liability curve. They revoke your license in 40 minutes. You walk out $250,000 in debt with a skill set that has exactly 0 legal applications outside a hospital. There is no civilian job for keeping blood inside a body that is actively trying to empty itself, so you take the only job that hires without questions. Night inventory, veterinary supply warehouse, Cicero, Illinois. The job is simple. Count boxes, scan barcodes. Don't think. That last part is the problem. Because your brain, the same one that spent 6 years mapping the human chest cavity, doesn't know how to stop running pattern analysis. By day 4, you notice the quantities are wrong. Animal ketamine, lidocaine, surgical staples, propofol. The volumes on these shelves don't match what a veterinary supplier needs. Not even close. You know what trauma volumes look like. You've ordered them yourself. These numbers are different. By day 9, you notice the crates. Certain shipments never enter the digital system. They arrive on unmarked trucks between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. They're gone before the day shift arrives. No barcodes, no records, no paper trail. By day 14, you've done the math. Veterinary warehouses don't pre-position trauma supplies at this volume unless someone nearby expects human injuries that can't be documented. This isn't a storage facility. It's a medical supply chain for people who can't go to hospitals. You think about reporting it for exactly 1 day, then you realize the problem. Reporting it requires explaining how you recognize the pattern. Explaining that requires describing your background. Describing your background reopens the license investigation, which reopens the amphetamine question, which ends any chance of ever practicing medicine again, licensed or otherwise. You make a decision that will cost you 3 years of your life. Unanswered questions are safer than truthful answers. You keep counting boxes. 3 weeks into the job, a black Lincoln Navigator tears through the loading dock fence at 3 a.m. It stops half inside the building. The back doors open. 2 men drag out a third. Your brain has already switched modes. Not fear, diagnosis. You don't decide to help. Your training decides for you. You find the veterinary trauma shears, combat gauze, vascular clamps, ketamine at animal dosing. You calculate the human equivalent in 3 seconds because physiology doesn't check credentials. You cut the suit open, locate the artery, clamp, suture, compress. 4 minutes and the bleeding stops. For the first time since the boardroom, your hands feel like they belong to you again. He hands you a roll of cash. $10,000. You count it on reflex. 20 minutes of work, 6 months of warehouse salary. You tell yourself it's a one-time payment for emergency services. You don't recognize it as a job interview. 4 weeks later, he's sitting in your apartment. You never gave him the address. He introduces himself as Carmine. He explains the business problem simply. No emotion, just variables. Hospitals create records. Records create witnesses. Witnesses create sentences. Injured men in his line of work need medical care that doesn't generate paperwork. The offer, $30,000 a month, cash, equipment budget, no questions asked. You sit with that number for about 30 seconds before you start doing the math on your student debt. You tell yourself medicine is neutral. A body is a body regardless of what that body has done. You tell yourself a surgeon in a war zone doesn't ask which side the patient fought on. You accept because the debt is real and the money is real and everything else is just the story you tell yourself about it. The clinic is in the basement of an abandoned meatpacking plant on the south side. No windows, no paperwork, no names. You design it yourself, and that's the first mistake. Because the more personal expertise you pour into the space, the more irreplaceable you become. You install surgical lighting, monitoring systems, sterilization protocol that exceeds most hospital standards. Within 6 months, it's better equipped than the residency program where you trained. They start calling you the mechanic. You assume it means you fix people. It takes you another year to understand. It means people are components in a system. And your job is to keep the components operational. The cases follow a pattern: a shattered kneecap from a baseball bat, a man with chemical burns from a lab accident, a bullet near the spine. You extract it cleanly. 2 days later, you hear about a shooting on the news that matches the wound trajectory exactly. That's the first time you understand what stabilization actually means in this context. You didn't save a patient. You preserve the next incident. You create rules to manage this. No names, no causes. Treat the injury, not the person. You call it professional neutrality, the same way a defense attorney represents clients they know are guilty. But there's a difference between a defense attorney and you. The attorney doesn't reload the weapon. Month after month, the cases come. Month after month, you patch the damage and send men back into the system that generated it. You stop watching the news. You memorize exit routes in every room you enter without thinking about why. You stop sitting with your back to doors. You tell yourself it's just awareness. No one asks you to cross a line, and that slowly convinces you the line doesn't exist. Then they bring a man who isn't injured. No blood, no trauma, just zip ties and a chair. Carmine says, "Not yet." They need information. Your job is to make sure the body doesn't escape what comes next. You tell him no. He doesn't raise his voice. He steps closer and explains, calmly, that the clinic was never built to save lives. It was built to control when they end. Hook up the IV, or you're the next patient. You connect the line. Here's what happens when a trained surgeon keeps someone conscious through extended physical trauma. The body has emergency exits: shock, unconsciousness, shutdown, biology's way of capping suffering at a survivable threshold. Your job is to close those exits. Fluids maintain circulation. Stimulants restore awareness. Monitoring keeps the body within survivable range without allowing escape from what's happening to it. Every time he fades, Carmine says the same 2 words: fix him. Every time, you do, not rescued, returned. Hours later, the man talks. Carmine thanks you, then kills him anyway, because the point was never survival. It was leverage, and leverage expires the moment it's used. You stand alone in that basement after they leave, and the silence feels louder than anything that just happened. In that silence, you finally understand the boardroom. They didn't take your license because you were dangerous. They took it because you couldn't locate the boundary between healing and control. You thought you lost that boundary the day the pills were found. You never had it. 3 nights later, a woman appears at the building entrance. She's holding a photograph the way people hold things when they already know the answer, but need one more person to not say it out loud. She starts talking about small things: how he overwatered every plant he ever owned, how he hated cold weather, how he forgot every birthday, but never once missed rent. She keeps talking because when you stop talking, the other thing becomes real. You nod at the right moments. You say things that aren't lies, but aren't the truth either. When she thanks you for your time and walks away, you feel something settle in your chest that isn't guilt. It's colder than guilt. It's confirmation. 2 weeks after the sister leaves, Carmine sits across from you in the clinic for the last time. He doesn't bring a patient. He brings a younger man, mid-20s, quiet hands. He introduces him without a name and tells you to walk him through the monitoring setup. You spend an hour showing a stranger everything you built. When you're done, Carmine walks you to the door, not the basement door, the street door, and hands you a piece of paper with an address in another city and a number on a burner phone. He doesn't threaten you. He doesn't have to. He just says, "You've earned some rest," which in this language means, you know too much to stay and too much to run. The envelope will come every month. As long as it arrives, nothing else does. You open a watch repair shop. Mechanical problems are honest. They stay broken unless you fix them, and nobody dies if you don't. At night, you still wake up at the hour you used to operate. Your fingers move over empty air, reaching for instruments that aren't there. The envelopes keep coming. You can change cities, change your name, change your routine. Your past still knows your forwarding address. The most dangerous trap isn't the one that catches you by force. It's the one that makes you feel like you finally belong somewhere. You didn't stop being a doctor the night they took your license. You didn't stop when you treated the gunshot wound. You didn't even stop when you connected the IV. You stopped the night you felt relief, when your hands felt useful again. That was the moment. Everything after was just the bill coming due. This story is fiction, but systems that turn skill into leverage exist in medicine, finance, law, technology. Everywhere expertise is scarce enough to be owned. The moment you become irreplaceable, morality becomes optional to whoever controls the room. Drop a comment. What moment do you think he actually crossed the line?